Hello, everyone. We're just letting all of you in from the waiting room. Thank you for joining. This is a very, very well attended event. Already have 100 people in here. That's fantastic. Um, I think we can just go ahead and get started. We're at the hour. So you've seen this slide before, the QR code to all the discounts that you're going to receive through, attending this dental boot camp. But this session, in case you're not aware, I think you are. This is kind of catered to the non-traditional applicant, which we're going to talk about this. Non-traditional nowadays is actually more common, I would say. Like it used to be like, probably a decade ago or so, the non-traditional applicant was less common, and that's why it's called, non-traditional. But even in the span of like the last several years, the field has really shifted to where it's actually less common, I believe, to just, you know, plunge your way right through school straight, straight out of undergrad, straight out of high school with no types of deviations along the path. So I feel like that's why there's quite a few people in this room, is because you can kind of identify yourself as non-traditional in a lot of different ways, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. My name's Jeremie. I'm at the University of Maryland School of Dentistry. I'm a third year. Yep. Then this is the session you're in. So here's a bit about our agenda today. Just going to move this out of the way. Sorry. Um, we're going to talk about some key strategies on how to stand out as a non-traditional applicant. And this can come in a lot of different packages, a lot of different thoughts. We're going to have this open Q&A session where I want this to be very like attendee driven, a lot like my coaching strategy. Like I want it to be useful to you. I don't want to just like talk about, things that I think are important. I'll give a few cues and tips, but I'd really like to see some tangible, like real world questions and thoughts from all of you who are the main purpose that we're hosting this event all week. And then I'll just kind of list off some final thoughts and experiences applying to dental school as a non-traditional applicant. I'll give you a brief, view of my background. So I guess like you could say I enjoy learning, enjoy school. Did a double major in undergrad out at the University of Hawaii and BYU Hawaii. So I was on the island of Oahu for 4 years. I actually took a 2-year break to go down to Brazil to serve as a missionary. Gained some great experience down there, kind of reaffirmed my desire to go into healthcare and, human service. And that kind of led me down an interesting path where, I found ways to kind of dual degree here and there and like filling gaps in my education. I realized I was so focused on science and, biology in particular, that I was really naive to a lot of things like how the world worked, which is business, and even healthcare is a very large business, and dentistry in particular is, tremendously business driven. And so that kind of led me to, realize that I needed to supplement my science passion with some business acumen, some, real world training. So I enrolled in an MBA program that was full time, but in the evenings during my PhD at the University of Utah. And I finished my PhD last year, defended in December of 23, and then graduated last May in 24. And what I studied was the different molecules that can cause cleft lip and cleft palate and how to target them with new drugs and diagnostics. So I'm really passionate about like cleft and craniofacial care. That's kind of what drove me into dentistry clinically. And ultimately I'd like to go to, oral and maxillofacial surgery residency, which I'm applying for this summer, and complete my MD, which I actually started along the path. It's not listed on here because it's not done yet, but I'm about halfway through my MD. But anyways, that's enough about me. I'm non-traditional. That's my cue, is that I've actually, like a lot of you, not a traditional applicant to dental school. So this can mean a lot of different things. Age, you could be older like me, 29 years old and started dental school. It could mean, of course, background, including, ethnic, cultural, racial, you name it. But I think, nowadays, a lot of non-traditional applicants are bringing in, unique experiences, whether that's working in the dental office, going into industry and helping like innovate new dental biomaterials. Like that's a huge topic, and a lot of people are starting to do that. Um, a lot of different skill sets. You might be an EMT, you might be a phlebotomist. It's actually how I paid rent out in Hawaii because it was so expensive. I got a job at a local hospital as a phlebotomist, so I got kind of, used to sticking, things into patients and just kind of that tactile sensation of clinical hand skills. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can differentiate yourself, and I'm sure you all have kind of your own reasons for being non-traditional. And I would argue that all of these things really help you stand out. And I mean, I sit on the admissions committee for the University of Maryland right now, and I just got done yesterday, conducting interviews with this wave of students who are applying at this point in the cycle. And it starts to get hard to differentiate yourself when you are applying. We had a kid who who applied. He's only 20 years old. Like he was on like an early admission program to college. He was graduating college in 3 years, and when I talked to him, my faculty and I both agreed he just there wasn't a lot of substance to his life yet. I mean, I have full confidence that he could get there, but we felt he wasn't ready for dental school. So we, while he was nice, while he was sure smart, his GPA was probably better than mine. I'm sure it was, but he just didn't have kind of that holistic, like well-rounded perspective on the world, on life, and on what dentistry meant for him. He just kind of thought it was a good idea. His grandfather was a dentist. And so, I mean, I only mention that because those things stand out on the admissions end. And I think, the more variety and diversity you can add to your life, the more that's going to pay dividends in your dental school application. And some of these things are in your control, some aren't in your control, right? You can't control how old you are right now, or exactly all the experiences that you have, but you can certainly find unique things that you can supplement your profile. And that's something that we can talk about in just a moment. Um, yeah, this is just kind of playing off what I mentioned before, but schools really want unique students. And something that the Leland platform, if you haven't gathered this already, is that I feel like as a coach, I really try to help navigate the soft skills of my applicants, my clients. And one of those is really knowing how to tiptoe the line between confidence and humility, right? Because you don't want to be over exaggerated on either of those aspects of your life. And it's kind of a fine line. So I think that just being able to talk to someone on the other side, and especially someone who, I mean, I've been through a few admissions, portals, as you can imagine, like, going through medical school admissions, dental school, PhD, MBA, like it's all like they're all kind of related and similar with different flares to them. And I feel like if you talk to someone who's been through a couple of those, they'll be able to give you, kind of unique advice on to how to present yourself properly, how to not, turn people off based on just that 5 minute, 10 minute interaction that you're going to have over Zoom. A lot of dental schools are still doing Zoom interviews. We're still doing all Zoom. It's kind of unfortunate, but anyways, um, I'm kind of tired of just rambling, so I'd really like to open this up to kind of the Q&A portion. I see the chat blowing up. Um, let me just see how we're doing here. If anyone's comfortable unmuting themselves, I'm all about that. You're more than welcome to, mention any sort of like unique struggle that you've come across or you anticipate coming across. Maybe you raise your hand and I can like call on you. Parmita's already on it. And then we can just kind of like workshop a few ideas during this time that we have together. And you can also put them in the chat and I'll keep an eye on that too. But Parmita, why don't you unmute if you're comfortable, or you can put it in the chat.
Hello, hi. So thank you for tonight's session. I'm not sure what time it is in the US, so but I'm in Canada. It's like around 8 o'clock, so that's why I said thank you for tonight. So, I have a question for the letters of recommendation. So I had my university in like COVID, and then it was so hard to like connect with the professors. Also, like the dental schools want us to have like letters from the science profs. So like even if they write letters for me, it's not gonna be too strong because they can't remember properly. So do you have any recommendation for me?
Oh, thank you for the question, Pramita. That's I feel like that's going to be a very similar and common struggle in your generation of applicants, right? Because of the unfortunate COVID situation. Um, you know, there's not a whole lot you can necessarily do to make up, excuse me, for the lost interaction and time that you may have experienced in undergrad due to COVID. But what I would encourage you to do with this time as you're preparing for your application cycle is to, seek out letter writers now. Like maybe you know them already, maybe you still need to meet them, but you have time now, right? You have time to get into the dental clinics in particular, because the letters of recommendation that dental schools are really going to value are the clinicians, because at the end of the day, they're training you to be a competent and caring clinician. And if they can see like your most robust letter of recommendation is coming from a dentist in the community that you were able to spend time with now, close to the cycle, that can really speak to your character, that can speak to your work ethic, like that's going to be the most valuable type of letter. I know you can't like retake organic chemistry necessarily and like get really tight with the professor, but does that make sense? I feel like that's my
It does.
gut answer.
Thank you so much. It helps a lot. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Hi,
I know.
Jeremy. I have a quick question.
Please.
Thank you for hosting this, Leland and yourself. I appreciate it really. I wanted to see, because I'm a current applicant, I'm a very, very non-traditional student. Just to give you a reference, I was a stay-at-home mom for over a decade and have four children. I've raised them, been very compassionate caretaker of them. And then I jumped back into my love for sciences, graduated with honors, things like that. So I wanted to know, what is Maryland looking for as far as, let's say, the DAT score, the cutoffs, things like that, and a GPA?
Yes. No, thank you for your question. Is it
Sure.
Melrose? Yeah. Very, very compelling story too. I mean, I think you'll definitely stand out if you can articulate, in your personal statement and your other application documents, just that unique background that you bring in to the class. Um, in terms of cutoffs, I can speak here at the University of Maryland and a few other schools that I'm kind of familiar with the admissions process, that it's not as absolute as you might think. And I say that because, the cycle is a long one. You have that, first pass of admission that happens like on December 15th of every year, where it's kind of the first wave of acceptances. And what tends to happen is that a lot of the same people apply to a lot of the same schools all over the country, and a lot of them are accepted to the same schools. And there's only so many seats. And so people will commit to one school or the other, and then all these schools have open seats across the board, right? So we're still interviewing in March. We'll still probably be interviewing or in February. We'll still probably be interviewing in March and April. And you kind of just, I wouldn't be discouraged if you don't get that acceptance right off the bat in December. Uh, I can say that a lot of schools might have a composite DAT score cutoff of like 17. Maryland might be slightly higher than that, but not much. Um, it'll certainly depend school to school. So I'm sorry I can't speak to like every single one, but I would say GPAs are a lot less of a cutoff. I think if you're above a 3.0, you are, you can certainly apply and do well. Um, yeah, let me think if there's anything else I can say about that. I think, yeah, I just wouldn't get discouraged if your numbers aren't through the roof, especially if you're a non-traditional applicant. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say, is that my DAT wasn't through the roof, but I feel like I had other aspects of my life and my application that could supplement for my lack of, perfect score, does that make sense?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So should I be hopeful for the current cycle, you think? And what's a good way to, because I was honestly looking at the following cycle as well. I should use this time to prepare. Um, what would you recommend as far as Maryland school?
Yeah, for the current cycle, I'd say, yeah, don't lose hope. I think that, if you are, if you feel like you are kind of borderline on some of those metrics, and maybe you don't make it in this cycle, um, a lot of schools offer feedback on their applications. I think Maryland is one of them, where you can contact them and ask them kind of what was the missing link in your application that year. And then most of the time, the admissions office will get back to you after a period of time, and they'll at least get you some information that you can hone in on for the next cycle. And so usually it's just, one or two things that you can probably correct for the next cycle. And I feel like that that could help you, but I wouldn't get discouraged yet. It's
Thank you very
still
much.
early. Sure. All right, we have some other hands. I'm gonna, yeah,
Hey,
I don't
Jeremy.
know first. Yeah. Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Oh, yes, go for it.
Hey,
Sorry,
Jeremy. How
I
are
don't
you?
know who's talking.
Yeah, my name is Jonathan.
Hey, Jonathan, how you doing?
Good, good. Thank you for tonight, by the way. It's really awesome that you're doing this. It's you got a lot of useful information. Um, just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. I definitely consider myself non-traditional. I'm 28 years old at this point. When I got out of high school, I was, very immature, very unfocused. I didn't take things seriously, and I messed around a lot, and I failed a lot of, easy courses like English and stuff like that, simply because of the fact that I wasn't very focused. So I took myself out of school at that time, and I went and got a job at a chemistry and biology that they work with FDA. I was a lab technician. I worked there for about 2 years. After that, tried to go back to school. I was still pretty unfocused. Took myself back out. I got involved in several of my own businesses. I ran, um, you know, a line of business in Oregon. I came back to Miami. I got another job as a lab technician in a big company, in a big production company. I also opened up a second business here in Miami. And I found that these, career moves were not very fulfilling to me. So I took myself out of that and I reassessed my situation, and I enrolled into a dental assisting program where I wasn't sure where I was headed, but I enrolled into that program and I did extremely, extremely, extremely well. I had straight A's. I was at the top of my class, and it was the first time where I felt very driven to perform well in school. And that's kind of where it hit me. I was 25 at that time, and that's kind of where it hit me, where I wanted to pursue dentistry. And after I finished that program, I made incredibly strong connections. I shadowed in an orthodontist office, or maxillofacial surgeons, general dentistry. I have letters of recommendation from all of them. I got a very strong letter of recommendation from the director of my dental assisting program, and I re-enrolled back into university. And from that point, I have been performing incredibly strong, and I just want to know the affinity that dental schools have towards somebody like me as a non-traditional student who has shown an upward trend, who shows a timeline of somebody who found what they really wanted to do and performed at their best capability. Yet to take my DAT to kind of tie all of this in together for my application, but if you have any advice for somebody like me.
Dude, I love
Yeah.
it. Thanks for sharing your story. And that there's probably a bit too much to dig into for this short session, but
Right, right.
I would love for you to DM me on the Leland platform. We'll do an intro call. We can hash out, more of that. But in short, please apply. Yeah, like you're a great candidate. I mean, that's the type of person that I think a lot of schools are excited about. And hopefully that was useful for people to hear your background. Maybe people resonate with that. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing to hear the different types of backgrounds we see, applying, and it just makes me happy to hear that people want to do dentistry after pursuing other, paths in life. So, yes, and let's talk later.
Thank you
Hi,
so much.
Jeremy. I also had a question.
Yes, sorry, I don't see who it is. I was looking at the people with their hands up. Who's speaking?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Taya. I had
Okay.
two quick questions. Of course, a non-traditional student. I've been a bit behind the eight ball, and to piggyback off of what he was saying before, what would be your advice, or I guess how competitive can we be as someone who I didn't know that I wanted to go to dental school until halfway through my junior year of undergrad, compared to someone who's been like a bio major and wanted to go to dental school since they were, a senior in high school, right? So I wanted some advice on that because I've been trying to make my application as competitive as possible, you know, from that standpoint. And then my second question was in regards to shadowing. I've been a dental assistant working clinical for 2 years. So in terms of shadowing, I haven't had much time to not work and then backtrack to shadowing. So what would be does any of that count towards like shadowing hours if you are actually working in the clinical dental field?
Thank you for the questions, Taya. So, yeah, to answer your first, yeah, I didn't know I wanted to do dental school until I was in my PhD, so I wouldn't worry about that, you know, in your junior year of undergrad. That's pretty early still, in my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I know it's easy to play the compare game when you're looking to your left and to your right in the classroom, but I mean, everyone's got a super unique journey, and you know, I think you could even articulate the fact that maybe you didn't identify dentistry, you know, right off the bat in your personal statement, and you can explain why. You can explain what that journey was, and I think a lot of times that's more compelling than someone who like you know, was born and out the womb, we're already, you know, talking about dental burrs. You know, I think I think
Yeah.
it's cool when you kind of go somewhere else and then you find dentistry. So I would encourage you to talk about that. But yes, so I think some programs can be a little bit specific about what they consider to be shadowing versus, you know, working hours. I would just be cautious with listing, you know, time as an assistant or as like whatever technician in a office as like shadowing because it is different and I can see what they're saying. Like I worked for a few months as a dental assistant, super valuable. You know, I wish I'd done more to be honest, but uh, when you're shadowing, your attention span is different, right? Like you are like focused in on what that doctor is doing. You're not worried about doing anything else. Like you are just like literally their shadow and you're just like soaking in as much as you can, you know, seeing the moves that they make, the interactions that they have with the patient. You're not worried about wiping down the chair or about, you know, sterilizing some instruments or like doing these like tasks that the doctor doesn't have to do. I think that it's just important to have each of those experiences kind of separately if you can. It doesn't have to be crazy hours, but you know, this last wave of applicant, like I mentioned, I was on the admissions committee, you know, just yesterday, and 3 out of the 4 that we interviewed that afternoon had virtually no shadowing hours, you know, listed or that they could talk about. They did have some work experience in dentistry. They didn't have any shadowing hours, and we didn't rank any of those 3. It wasn't the only thing that they had deficient, but I just mentioned that to point out the importance. Like we're actually looking for that, like specific shadowing hours, and
Okay.
you know,
Does
enough
it help?
to
Does
where.
it help that I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
No,
Does
no,
it help that I did spend one complete summer shadowing before I kind of transitioned into working? So does like some versus none and then in addition to the working experience, does that kind of help a little bit?
yeah, no. If you have a number of hours already logged, like that's as long as you can speak to it, you know,
Okay.
intelligently. I think that's the main point. Is if you can like articulate how impactful it was to you, like that's what we're really looking for.
Thank
Um,
you so much.
Okay, and I'm really sorry, but we can do one more question. I'm going to pull from someone who has their hand up. Sarah Cruz is in the top left of my screen, so I'm going to ask her to unmute. And please, everyone else with their hands up, send me a DM. I love answering questions. We can always hash them out later.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Yeah, thank you so much for doing this. So my question, so a little bit about myself. I am 26 years old. For the last 4 years, I've been a tax accountant. I'm mastered in accounting,
Oh,
and I am currently taking my prerequisites in science. The thing is, I'm working full time, and so I have a hard time taking the classes I could take in person, I take in person at a community college. I this semester I have to take like my biology class in biology 2 in like an online class. Is
mhm.
that going to hurt me in the future, kind of like applying to dental schools? Will they like view that as a big negative if I take all the other classes in person?
No,
Okay.
no. Short answer is no. Yeah, I had several of my core science courses that I actually took online because of certain family and personal circumstances. Like I took OChem Part 2 online technically, and yeah, there wasn't a problem. So yeah, big no. But thank you. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I'm sure a lot of other people also have on their minds. So yeah, I would encourage you to just, you know, stay the course, keep on going. It's an impressive background.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I'm just gonna jump to the last couple slides we have. Like, I really am passionate about this topic of helping non-traditional applicants. I'm sorry that this is not a very long session with all of us together. I know there's a lot of us in the room. There's not time for everybody to tell their story. I'm sorry, but you know, I'm telling you, I'm here for you. And you know, I still have another year and a half at dental school. I want to help people get in. I want to help you articulate your story. Like that's honestly the biggest part that I feel that non-trads can kind of use some help, is just like helping that story weave in and out of their life to the point where they're applying and getting in. So let me help you. Reach out anytime. I'm more than happy to discuss. And here's some QR codes, and thank you all for joining. I appreciate you.